Yeah, I know.
Unbelievable.
And you can actually record at the same time, so that's good.
Is that what's happening right now?
Yeah, they're both going.
Okay.
This one's at 15 seconds.
Oh, good. We're catching all this stuff.
Yeah.
All right, what's up? We're back. We have ads now. So
All right.
if you listen to that ad, just bear with us.
Yeah, if you hear the ad it's at the very start now.
Yeah.
About promoting the Anchor app. I don't work for them and we don't get paid by them yet, but this is to give us a chance to get paid, I guess, by doing so. Probably like 5 cents per episode or something.
Yeah. Line those pockets. Coffee change. All right, we have our second guest in the history of our talking.
Yes.
So that's kind of cool. We're going to learn all sorts of things. I'm just here to listen.
We're going to see what we can cram into an hour. I think it's going to fly by.
Yeah, it's going to be real quick. There's a lot of information to come, but mostly about female cycle and how it relates to nutrition and fitness protocols. We have Lindsay Martens. And if you're from West London CrossFit, you know Lindsay.
Yeah.
She's an OG.
Literally.
Yeah.
I was the first on-ramp.
Yeah, that's the most OG that it could possibly get.
There's a couple of us there, but yeah.
Who's still there?
Shokes.
Shokes. Okay.
She was the first on it.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's a legendary class.
Adam was at the old gym.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he was there. I don't remember everybody else. Those are the two I know for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still around.
Yeah, we were there when the doors opened.
That's so cool.
That's
the oldest
funny.
of G's.
Have you seen an on-ramp in progress since then at all?
Not really, because there are times I don't go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how different it is, if any.
Well, the gym is different, so I would imagine the on-ramps are pretty different. Yeah.
Yeah.
I went back and watched one of the old videos of, it's like 2013, I would say, Joel taking a tour through the gym, like introducing the space to everyone. And it's so strange, like me seeing it, because it looks completely different.
Yeah.
You can't even recognize the space.
Yeah. And the people look different.
Yeah. Yeah. The space has changed a lot, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Walls and rooms and everything's changed in there.
I think the people were working out in bell-bottom jeans too.
Jeez.
Which are going to come back soon.
Yeah. Oh my god. They may get some stretchy crotches though, because they're going to blow out.
Oh,
All right. Cool. We're off track already. Let's
it's going well.
Yeah. Let's learn about Lindsay, because a lot of you guys will just know Lindsay as someone at West London CrossFit that laughs a lot and has a good time and is always there, kind of on her own time, doing her own thing. So just tell us a little bit about you, what you do every day when you're not at the gym.
Sure. So outside of the gym, I'm a naturopathic doctor, and I've been in practice since 2006 here in London. I work primarily with women's fertility. There's a whole long story about how that came to be, but around 2012, I really focused my practice in on women's fertility, women's hormones, women's menstrual cycles, and that's what I've been doing. Yeah.
Nice.
Right on.
I have a question. How did you decide to get into that in the first place?
Naturopathic medicine? Yeah. So again, I feel like these are going to be rambly stories.
That's good.
So I grew up in a home that was very focused on health. So, my mom was going to the gym all the time, focused on nutrition, eating healthy. She experimented and tried a whole bunch of different diets well before her time. I have two older sisters, and one of them was on a medication, tetracycline, for skin acne stuff. And along her way, she started kind of really researching it, figuring out about it, and realized it's not ideal, affects the body quite a bit. And so she got off of it and then tried to kind of detox her system at that point in time. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with an old book called The Body Ecology Diet.
No.
It's like one of the first books I know of around macrobiotic type diet, candida cleansing, that whole idea. So my sister did that, and the whole household kind of was involved in that then, because my mom was cooking for her and everything like that. So I'm trying to think about how old I was at the time. She was probably, I don't know, early 20s. And I'm 8 years younger than her. So I was in like maybe 11, 12, 13, like a fairly impressionable time, impressionable age. And around that same time, I think, but I might be losing my timeline, she started seeing a naturopath in Red Deer, where I'm from. And along that way, I started menstruating and started experiencing really severe pain with my cycle. So it was irregular. And then when it would come, I would be like down and out, vomiting, bathroom floor, awful. So somewhere in there, my mom took me to the naturopath as well. And so I don't know, I think I saw her for the first time when I was about 13 and then knew what I wanted to do. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So obviously they were of a big help to you
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah. So through that, my mom had also taken me to our medical doctor, and Western medicine for this thing, the answer is birth control pill. So they put me on that. And again, losing my timeline here a bit, but somewhere in there, I started seeing the naturopath, and with her came back off of the birth control pill, which is not a common story for women, and was able to come off of it and just be healthier, feel better. And yeah.
Well, do you want to just jump to the pill now, or we'll leave that till later?
Yeah, let's go now.
Let's just jump right in.
Well, why don't we can you give us like your overview of the menstrual cycle in general beforehand? Because you definitely have a more in-depth understanding of it than the average person, to say the least.
Yeah. So I look at the menstrual cycle, and a lot of people look at the menstrual cycle this way. So it's a 4-phase cycle. And we start with phase 1, which is the menstrual bleed, which is a fairly obvious, like starts with your first day of bright red bleeding. That phase usually lasts about 5 to 7 days. And then you move into phase 2, which is your follicular phase. This is the phase where your body is building hormones. It's building the uterine lining. It's nourishing the follicle that's going to release the egg. And then you move into phase 3, which is your ovulatory phase. That's when the egg's actually released. Hormones spike, and the cells that are part of the follicle that release the egg start to change and start to produce progesterone. And then phase 4 is your luteal phase. Where these phases kind of start and end is like kind of variable a little bit, but it usually starts in the 3 to 5 days post ovulation. And this is when progesterone levels are coming up to their peak. And it's about a week to 10 days before your next bleed starts. So that's sort of like the 4 phases.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to give everyone kind of like a sneak preview, I think later on, if we have time, I hope we have time, we'll get into a little bit more of, we were talking about this a bit before we started recording, and we had to kind of quickly stop ourselves, but how like based on the point at which you are in your cycle may affect your exercise and training, affect how well you can build muscle, essentially, how well you can recover, and then what the best program is, and even what the best nutrition is to fit your body at that period of time.
Yeah. And having awareness around that gives you a lot of freedom, right? From like, and just a sense of connection with your body and how it's working and why things feel a certain way.
Totally.
Which is, for me, not knowing nearly what you guys know about this topic and the whys of it is like, for somebody who's just listening, that's going to give that individual a lot of freedom in their training, right? And a lot more understanding. With awareness comes freedom, and then you can kind of work within that and understand why you're feeling a certain way. And because I know for some athletes that I program for, they get discouraged.
Absolutely.
And it's like, it's hard for me to explain to them why they shouldn't be discouraged with not having the right words. So that's kind of my hope in learning from you guys right now.
Well, and I think that whole, like the overlying message there is like my core message is when women understand their bodies and understand their cycles and can learn to live with that, everything else becomes so much easier. So the roller coaster they may feel like they're on, or like, because this goes across their whole life, right? So it's like if they're going into the gym trying to hit a PR at the wrong time and they don't hit it, it's frustrating, it's discouraging, and they think there's something wrong with them and that they've failed in some way. And the reality is this is just how their bodies operate. And when they work with it, they're like, there's no failure in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. We should get into the pill now before we get too far along, because I know like right now people are probably thinking, lots of people are probably thinking right now, okay, like what are the differences if I or someone I know is on the pill? How do things change?
Right. So,
besides a lot.
Besides everything.
Yeah.
So the pill, so there's a few different types of hormonal birth control, but we're just going to touch on the birth control pill, which there are then a few different types of birth control pills, which basically the differences are that the amount and types of hormones that are in them are a little bit different, but what they do to the body is all very similar. So the hormone system, the endocrine system, is a system of communication. It's a system where various glands in your body communicate with other glands in your body and tell it to do things. And that communication and that smooth communication is a really important process for the body to kind of move through all of those phases appropriately. And the pill comes in and shuts that communication off. So the connection between the glands in your brain to your ovaries just gets done. And so that affects like any production of hormones you might have, what those hormones then, how they would communicate with the rest of your body and all sorts of things that way. And it generally speaking, brings all of your hormone levels down to sort of a bottom or a baseline type level. Whereas in a menstrual cycle that doesn't have any synthetic hormones in it, your hormones are peaking at various times in your cycle, and those peaks of hormones create things. Create various pathways. We'll talk about them. But yeah, the pill shuts that down, brings all those hormones down low. And so it keeps you on a day-to-day level in a very similar spot every day. Whereas a woman who is cycling without any synthetic hormones, her day-to-day is different every day. The amount of hormone that's in her body every day is different.
Okay, right. Yeah. And that's going to affect more than just one system in the body, right?
Right. So the endocrine system, we think about sometimes we really cut the body into pieces. Yeah. And the endocrine system is a complete system from like head to toe. So we're talking about glands in your brain that are producing not just things that communicate with your ovaries, but also your thyroid, your adrenal glands, your pancreas. And then those hormones like estrogen, progesterone, insulin, cortisol are all interacting with the whole system as well. So it's not just impacting, your ovaries, it's impacting your pancreas, your adrenal glands, your thyroid potentially.
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking, so like one thing that came up during that is that, like you said, like people always think of us as like compartmentalized type things. So then when different things like, I mean, just as an example, like the pill causes weight gain or the pill may even trigger acne, just as like different examples, like people always think, like, how is that at all possible? But then like we're not this compartmentalized system. And then what's interesting to me is that not only do we know that all these systems interact, but there's actually like, if we go away from human studies and look like a little bit more deeper per se and look at like the actual pathways behind this, we know like specific pathways that lead to some of these consequences. So like you mentioned, like pituitary to adrenal. So like cortisol, for example, adrenal gland, like we know that if this is high, it prevents conversion of like E2. So just one of the estrogens. So like that's one example of one specific pathway that's linked to this process. There might be like an inhibition of, so we've talked about like thyroid hormones before and how that's linked to weight gain. So there's specific pathways that they've found where it's like, okay, the pill may inhibit this conversion that's taking place from thyroid hormones. So it's not just like, there's like the outside perspective where it's like, we know it causes weight gain, but then when scientists look deeper, It's like, oh, this is the actual pathway that
Yeah.
that's responsible for.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. So I'll have a lot of women in my practice. I actually just had a patient in this week who is coming off of the birth control pill. And the reason is because of how it's affecting her system and not her reproductive system. It's how it's affecting her mental health. It's how it's
Right.
affecting her energy. Like, but if she did go to her medical doctor and it's like, well, the pill doesn't cause that,
Yeah.
you know,
yeah.
and it's like, well, of course it could. Maybe it's not the sole cause, but yeah, it impacts a lot of things. Yeah. And it kind of gets brushed off that it doesn't, but it definitely does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And cause is a very strong word.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Yes.
I just mean like, so people, again, like who maybe don't appreciate like what's going on with something like the endocrine system, they just think, you know, cause. Well, no,
Yeah.
it's not always like cause and effect. It's like, I mean, it'd be like you make a change downtown to like how you operate with like police officers or something, and then you have downstream consequences. Well, it's not necessarily a cause of that, but it can be like a secondary. Or
yeah, definitely a factor in it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it seems like sometimes the solution is just, oh, try this different one
Yes.
instead of,
yeah.
and then, I mean, that's
That's a whole road of trying a whole bunch of things.
Yeah,
Before getting to anything that might help.
yeah. And that can really mess people up for the long term. And that's, I mean, I'm not sure of your clientele or the practice members that you have, but I'm assuming that maybe the people that you see have been stuck in that experimentation, I guess, and now it's just gotten out of control.
Yeah, definitely. And they're also in a place, the pill too, so one of the things, this comes from traditional Chinese medicine, is our bodies go through 7-year cycles. And so when you think about a young girl and when she starts menstruating, the next 7 years of that process are really important to how her body learns how to do that communication. And when we interject a pill into that process, we throw that all off. So I have a lot of people in who have been through that experimentation phase, and they're also doing it in a phase where that brain body interruption is so strong that once they come out of that, their body doesn't know what to do anymore, right? Like that pathway and that maturity in their system hasn't gone to completion.
Okay.
So they can be mid-20s, late 20s, and like,
it's really messed up when you actually think about it for a little bit. Like it's, well, I mean, okay, like biologically females, like this is what makes them female, right? Like literally what makes them female at a biological level. And we're just like preventing that. So like to think that has no consequences is just insane.
Well, it's kind of like, maybe this isn't the exact same, but like if I said to you, hey, you're having this issue, but I know how to fix it. I'm going to bring your testosterone right down. You'll be good. Like, would you buy into that? Like, would you, right? Like, unlikely.
That's a gamble.
So it's just an interesting thing where we've kind of, it's had its place, but where we've done this and lost sight of where the consequences might be.
So I just wrote, I don't want to forget it for later. It's kind of related to this, not really. But do you think that, so young girls that go on the pill at a younger age, would they then actually hit puberty later? So their body's still like, so typically speaking, this would happen. They would get their period. They would start having some issues. So 2 or 3 years down the road into having their period, they would like start being on the pill for whatever reason it might be. So they've already started the process. So their body doesn't like stop 100%, but the maturity that occurs over those years stops and changes. Yeah. Okay. So I was thinking in terms of like, if you look at the average young girl nowadays, like they hit puberty so much younger. Earlier. And I was just wondering, like, I don't know. I know there's other factors at play that we're probably going to talk about later, like the xenoestrogen thing. Yeah. But I was just wondering how the pill ties into that. Yeah. But we'll get to that, I think.
Yes. What are the scribbles you have there?
Well, it was
He's got a whole page of them.
like we can get into the like how fluctuations in hormones throughout the cycle affect training, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
So my understanding of it, again, very like surface level, and most of it came from meeting with Lindsay like a few weeks ago, and we talked about this a little bit. Because I read a book beforehand. This is kind of where I learned about this in the first place, because I didn't know much about it, and then we met, and now I've kind of pieced a little bit of this together. But anyways, so my understanding is that, I mean, in very simple terms, progesterone is a catabolic hormone, so it makes building muscle more difficult, makes muscle protein synthesis itself more difficult. So the idea being, in later stages of the cycle when progesterone is high, you'd probably want to me, increase, like I like to call it like protein pulsing almost. So you might take like, say like 15 to 20 grams of a whey protein or an essential amino acid, not only throughout the day, but especially like around that training session to support muscular growth and adaptation. And then the other one, which I'll leave to Lindsay, is how estrogen towards the end of the cycle can essentially increase inflammation. So we talk about inflammation and recovery a lot on this show.
Yeah.
So of course, if your baseline inflammation is maybe higher than usual, well, that means you're going to have a little bit harder time recovering from your training, especially like the heavy eccentric stuff, like the high volume anaerobic stuff that really beats you down.
Yeah. So I think the simplest way is to kind of say like pre-ovulatory, your estrogen is going to build and peak. And post-ovulatory, your progesterone is going to build and peak to meet or balance that estrogen level. And then estrogen is a building hormone. So it builds our uterine lining, it builds, helps to nourish the follicle. And then that goes through the whole system, right? So it's helping our body to build muscle. It's changing our insulin sensitivity so we can take in carbohydrates better because we're in a building place of our cycle. Whereas post-ovulatory, we're more in a holding or a stabilization pattern and then a decrease pattern. So progesterone, like you said, it will be more catabolic. And so there's be some changes to how our body will hold or build at that point in time. And it also, again, changes our insulin sensitivity a bit so that we don't tolerate carbohydrates in the same way. And so we go into more of using fat as a fuel source. We would be a bit more efficient in that place around that. So then estrogen is kind of inflammatory, but when it's balanced, it's not. Like it's just, right? We're not always inflamed when we have estrogen. But if estrogen is too high and or progesterone's deficient, we will get an estrogen dominant picture, and that creates a lot of inflammation. Okay. We typically see that picture post-ovulatory, because that's where progesterone is supposed to be balancing that estrogen level. But depending on how high the estrogen is or how imbalanced that might be, we might see some inflammatory signs pre-ovulatory as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. The carb fats thing and the insulin sensitivity is super interesting.
Yeah.
Like for one, isn't it kind of contradictory in a way, because don't the cravings for carbs come at?
Yeah. Well, so there's kind of two parts to that which when you're working with an individual, you can start to figure this out. But when you try and like kind of textbook answer the questions, it kind of gets into a really wonky place. So there's two main phases of the cycle that require a lot of energy, and that's ovulation and bleeding. So those carb cravings can be coming from a place of your body asking for more energy. So, and there's like some other factors that go into the carb cravings for sure, but some of that is coming from an energy needs place. Yeah.
So probably hypothetically, like I've actually been, oh God, the water bottle almost blew up. I've been experimenting with this a little bit with a client right now who is very willing to be like a guinea pig for all of this.
Yeah.
And again, like N=1, so don't read into it too much, but we've just been adjusting like caloric intake based on what you mentioned, like higher demand for energy phases, and then adjusting like the carbs and fats. So maybe a little bit higher carb and then titrate that down and increase the fats.
Yeah.
Which would also fit with like a hypothetical training program, right? Like higher
Absolutely.
intensities earlier in the month, lower intensities later on, maybe more
Yes.
skill based.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, so thus far it's been going amazing. Like
Yeah.
she says that I'm not going to say it because I'll probably butcher it, but at normal points throughout her cycle where she would normally like, say increase like water retention, maybe go up a few pounds. She said the opposite.
Yeah.
Like been steadily just decreasing weight overall, feeling much better. No more PMS. So I don't know. Maybe there's something there. Maybe it's coincidence, but it seems interesting.
Yeah. I would think there would have to be something there, just knowing what I know. Right. But it's helpful if you can kind of get a few different women and knowing who it is. Yeah. I also know she, wonderfully so, has a very consistent regular cycle, which is amazing and really helpful to be sort of one of the first people to be working with in that way. Because when you start to get into somebody that has a bit of a cycle irregularity, it can become a little bit more interesting. But I think their cycle would normalize a little bit when it's being taken care of properly, right? Yeah.
Can you say again when you're changing the carb and fat intake?
Yeah, I just went around like day 14.
Yeah.
So, what's happening then? Increasing or decreasing fat and carbs?
So carbohydrates were decreasing and then fat intake was coming up. So I just picked, like, just for simplicity, I picked like halfway point.
Yeah.
I'm sure maybe you could get a little bit more technical, but
yeah.
No, and again, for someone who has sort of a textbook normal cycle, that's a pretty easy way to do it. Day 14, day 15, make that adjustment. You're going to be pretty good that way. For someone who doesn't have a textbook normal cycle, they need to learn their cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that sounds a lot more complicated than, especially if it's irregular.
Yeah. It is a little bit complicated. It takes a bit to learn, for sure. There are some really simple tools to learn it, but it is effort.
Yeah.
It requires like a daily focus and attention.
Like, it's pretty rare,
sure.
Is it? Like, am I saying it's rare that for women to actually have that like deep of an understanding of it? Is that, would you say, based on the patients you've seen?
Right. So I see a different population of women who I think actually know quite a bit about their cycles, but still are learning a lot too. But I would say most women, when I ask them, hey, do you track your cycle? They'll be like, yes. And then they'll get out their app and will have marked like their bleeding days. And I'm like, cool. Not fully tracking your cycle. And so we'll get into some of I'll be teaching them more about what cycle tracking really looks like. Nice. Yeah.
If somebody listening wants to go that route, is there recommendations?
So this is good. I will hopefully very quickly be putting together an online teaching for cycle tracking. So hopefully a 4 to 5 week self-study type course that I'm writing a guidebook. Book is a strong word. And there'll be some video learning along the way, helping them figure out what that looks like. And then after they go through that process, if there's still questions or whatever, then absolutely, I'll hopefully be able to help them along the way. But yeah.
I have probably what's a pretty ridiculous question, but just for warning, we have to take a quick break in about 90 seconds. But okay, we see this pop up. I know nothing about it. Is there any truth to male cycles?
I don't really know, to be honest.
It's strange.
I don't see how fully. And yet, I mean, I don't think that men are the exact same every day. There must be some shifts and changes that happen. But I wonder if it comes more to sleep, stress, nutrition than an actual hormone cycle.
Yeah, I don't know. I could rationalize like a seasonal flux for sure. Like amount of sunlight exposure, darkness, obviously. Absolutely. But I don't know. And I don't know, like people who say there's a male cycle, I don't know what they're saying that cycle actually includes, but I just wanted to know because I've heard this pop up before and I'm like,
I think it's the people that notice their partners' husbands getting grouchy every once in a while. And they're like, I think you go through a pattern as well. That's where I think it might come from.
I have that.
Yeah, I always joke about that. But I know where it comes from. It always will follow like a period of time where my nutrition is not on point. That's always what happens.
Yeah.
I just restart it. We're good.
Back at it.
We might have to use this one, but that's okay.
That's right. We got 2 rolling, I guess.
Yeah. Jesse was just saying that when he experiences this, it's more so due to training and nutrition irregularities.
Yeah, and when I say it, it's a total joke. And usually it's like, for me, it'll just be like near the end of a training cycle, so the intensity is higher. And then I don't compensate by increasing my carbohydrate intake or regular.
It's funny how much you notice that.
Yeah. So it has nothing to do with an actual meal cycle. It's just like, it's a feeling.
But still, take rest days.
Yeah. It's a total joke.
What else we got?
We got a big thing on the Xenoestrogens.
Yeah.
Don't touch those receipts.
Yeah.
I can start just because it's fresh in my mind, and I'll probably forget if I start listening for too long. So, I mean, basically, they're everywhere in the environment, like, plastics, receipts, cosmetics, shampoos, soaps, laundry detergent, even like pesticides, herbicides, birth control, antibiotics. It's a pretty long list.
Yeah.
And basically what they do is they mimic estrogen in the body. So they'll literally bind to estrogen receptors. And then we can get into some of those problems that you hinted at.
Yeah.
Which is, estrogen, like, necessary. We need it at the right amounts. But if we get into a state of estrogen dominance or excess estrogen, this is where those problems emerge.
Yeah. Well, and there's something there too around different types of estrogen. So we talk about like estrogen as if it's one thing. It's not. There's various types of estrogens in your body, and hormones work in a lock and key mechanism type thing, right? So something looks the right shape, attaches to that receptor, and then triggers things to happen within the cell it's just attached to. But what the cascade of reactions that happens after that is different based on what key actually locks in there, right? Mm. And so that can happen within your body with just the different types of estrogen to start with, let alone bringing in these weird synthetic compounds that look enough like estrogen to bind to those receptors, but definitely do not function like estrogen, and our body doesn't respond in the same way to estrogen, to those estrogens, the xenoestrogens. Yeah. And they're, quite literally everywhere. And it can be kind of overwhelming if you start to look at it too closely.
Definitely don't.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, this might be an ignorance is bliss situation.
As we drink out of our glass balls. But yeah, I read a book recently that was solely about xenoestrogens. Very interesting. It was someone who actually did like PhD research on this topic somewhere in the States. But what's the name of this? I'll have to post it afterwards because I'm drawing a blank on it. But it's pretty interesting because he does a deep dive on the research, and actually he'll go in and look like individually at each and every single one of these xenoestrogens. He'll compare like who's banned them throughout the world, like the US versus Europe versus Canada. A lot of the times, sometimes they're like semi unregulated in the States, and then that exact same whatever it is, maybe it's like a certain ingredient in a soap or something, might be completely banned outright in Europe or in Canada. And then vice versa. There might be ones where there is a couple examples of ones that Europe has banned outright, but Canada still has. Yeah. I don't know which ones off the top of my head because there is like hundreds of thousands of them. But it's pretty. And so back to the early puberty thing. Yeah. Like it seems like this is hugely linked to that.
Yeah, it would have to be,
Yeah.
right? We wouldn't be able to get away from that being a factor in it, for sure. Yeah.
And I've heard that they're even now considering just changing the quote unquote average age of puberty.
Yeah, to just
just to like normalize
match the things
it,
we've
right?
done
like,
to the system.
Oh, it's not a big deal. Like it's just the average age is younger now. So
Yeah.
when a young girl hits puberty now at 9 years old, they say it's all right, it's normal. This is our average now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of crazy. It's really crazy if you kind of look at it really kind of broad spectrum. And then we also like the things we've sort of inherited along the way, right? So like one of the incredible things around children is like the egg that I had for my children was in my mom to start, which then was like back in my grandma, right? So we have this big generational thing about how things are impacting our children. And so we can look at things and be like, okay, we've kind of made a mistake here. We've like let these compounds into our system without fully knowing how they are affecting everybody. Right. So let's start, banning them or clearing it up, cleaning it up. And the truth is we still don't it will take generations before we start to see that impact as well. Because we sort of, I would say more maybe my generation of women and the people I see in my practice, we had a lot of menstrual cycle issues in those kind of early teenage years. But now when I'm thinking about my daughter, like she could be menstruating next year, like she's 8, right? And that's something we might have had that a little bit in my generation, but now in her generation, it's like across the board, just early puberty, right? And that's
becoming the new normal.
Yeah.
It's younger.
Yeah.
It's scary.
That's crazy.
And then how long a woman's body is exposed to those hormones impacts many, many things, let alone just like risks of hormonal cancers. And I mean, it just everything. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not just females that are vulnerable, it's males too.
Absolutely.
So I mean, if you just look at the average male testosterone level in like the last 70, 80 years, like it's gone through the toilet, like dropped by over 50%.
Yeah.
So this is probably a huge
it impacts like all bodies, right? Definitely not just female.
I don't know if did we mention that it's also the endocrine system. I don't know if we might have forgot that, but we're talking about all these risks and side effects. And so like it's the endocrine system that Lindsay talked about at the very start. It's affecting that exact same system. So now we can appreciate, okay, this is where these side effects and all these risks are coming from.
Yeah.
And like fat, part of the endocrine system too. So how are these things linked to like weight gain and obesity?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make the connection there for sure.
And even, I don't know if you guys talked about this. Sorry, I didn't listen to the last one. What the? But when people start to lose weight, there's a lot of stuff stored in those fat cells too. Yeah. And the impact that happens on a system when those fat cells are being broken down and what's being released back into the system for the body to deal with can be a lot too. So we can get a lot of hormone issues. So women I see who are maybe overweight and they start making shifts and start losing weight, like we can see down the road a couple months in that starts to affect them in a different way, their menstrual cycle. So we might've been treating this in this manner. And now we had to shift ourselves because of what her body is having to kind of clear through as like fat cells break down and she loses weight. Yeah.
Interesting. Now, the topic of like cleansing from this, right?
Yes.
That's a big one. Right? Like the
detox.
The detoxes and the cleanses from all these toxins. Yes. What's your approach?
I wish some of these words I could just like rename them and use them in my own way. I have a few words like that. Detox and stress are my 2 words that I'm like, okay, we need to figure out.
They mean too many things.
They mean too many things and it's terrible. Yeah.
You mean I can't just quickly detox if I drink the screen juice? Or eat 100 grams of fiber?
Oh my God.
Because that's what most people think when they hear detox or cleanse. They're thinking like a digestive system cleanse where you're on the toilet for 40 hours.
Absolutely. Straight. Yeah. Or they'll maybe hear some of this, like listen to this podcast and then think, oh, I need to go do that 7-day cleanse to get rid of these like xenoestrogens. And it's like,
right. Yeah. No. As you guys are talking about that, that was like,
totally. let's clear the detoxification.
Let's clear this up.
Yeah. So your body has a few different detox organs. They're labeled as, and what that means is that they metabolize things that come into our system and then either excrete them or your body uses them. So we have, let me see if I can remember them all, like skin, lungs, kidneys, liver, intestinal tract. Am I missing any?
I think so.
I think those are our detox organs. So the biggest one, or the one that gets everything, because every cell of blood that is in your body goes through this organ, is your liver. And it has the strongest, I would say maybe the most powerful detox pathways. So when we talk about detoxification, like these are actions that your body takes. Like this is a pathway that your body goes through. Your liver will filter through, it will metabolize these things, and then will either send it back into your intestinal tract for excretion or into your blood for use. Your liver can get overwhelmed. Like it can get, I don't know, in Chinese medicine, the term we use is stagnant. So we get a lot of liver stagnation patterns where the liver is functioning, like it's, if you were to do blood work, like you're not in liver disease, but there's definitely a pattern that it's not optimal. It's not functioning at its like strongest capability. So you can support that function, therefore detox through supporting like your normal detoxification pathways. So something that is going to act as a laxative is not going to do much.
Just use up all your toilet paper.
Yeah, like it'll do some things, but not necessarily what you want. Flooding yourself with like nutrient dense food, if you're like, so in like, you know, the super concentrated green juice, yeah, like there might be a place to have all of those nutrients come in. Is that detoxing your body? Like, no, it's not. Yeah. It's not helping those pathways to function better. Yeah.
Right. And can't this even like these quick detoxes or whatever, some of them make things worse in some cases. Cause like so we have our phase 1, phase 2. So if you are by taking this quick detox, if you are sending everything through phase 1, and then all of a sudden you don't have the essential nutrients for phase 2, which is what it also needs to go through to become excreted, then that's when these toxins are kind of, well, they're reactivated essentially, right?
Yeah.
And they're even more toxic sometimes in that intermediate phase.
Yes.
So if you're taking this bolus of like, whatever it is, detoxifying green juice or whatever, detox X.
Yes.
And then you're mobilizing all these toxins all immediately, all at once. And then all of a sudden, I don't have the nutrients for phase 2. Well, then all this stuff is going to be even more reactive now. And it's going to maybe mess me up a little bit.
Yeah. So everything goes through like phase 1 of your liver. And then there's like these intermediaries almost that are created. And then they have to go through phase 2 to get fully bound and excreted. And if they're not fully bound and excreted, you have all of these really active, changed, but active material that then goes back into your bloodstream and just can flare everything up. Yeah.
Meanwhile, it's a massive marketing area, right? Like, detox this, detox that.
Yes. Yeah.
So if somebody comes to you and says, I want to detox my system, or I want to cleanse my system, what would be, every person's a little different.
Sure, of course. Yeah.
But how do you educate that person to make the right choice?
Right. So, first of all, I do a bit of a screening with people.
Step 1, understand the individual.
Step 1, people that are looking for a quick fix don't come into my practice. Step 2, though, because I do use liver supportive herbs in most of the women I see for a lot of reasons. So I definitely, if you want to use that as like we're detoxing, we definitely help support that function, but I help them to really understand what that means and why we're doing it and how long that takes, like how long their body might not need that support, why their body needs that support, and then what going forward would look like. Because like, so we can clear through our environment a lot, right? We can, we can reduce our plastic, we can get better water, we can, change our cleaning beauty products, all of that kind of stuff. And yet we're still going to come into contact with a lot of things that our body has to process through. So yeah, over time, our body might get kind of overwhelmed, or we eat crappy food, or we don't sleep as well as we should, or whatever it might be. And then I'm tending to see a lot of women who are coming off of synthetic hormones. So whether that's birth control pill, or like with my fertility patients, and they've been on, hormones for treatments or whatever it might be. So their body, it's more than our body was maybe designed to have to deal with on a regular basis. So yeah, we'll use some liver supportive herbs for sure over the course of a month or two, and help their body to move that stuff through. And then you can kind of be on your merry way for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
But something that's 7 days, let's say, or some sort of, nothing I use has a laxative base to it, right? Like moving people through that process really fast can really strip their bodies. So strip it of nutrients, strip it of like everything else it needs, possibly create more problems. Whereas all I want to do is like support the normal function of your liver. Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of like that. You got the who, what, when, where, why, and how.
Yes.
Like you get all the information instead of, in most cases, you just get the when and how. Yeah. Most of the time. Yeah. Right. So that's a whole other level of service that you're providing.
Right. Or the like quick detox to lose 5 pounds or whatever it might be. Right. Like.
Yeah. Cool.
I just had a point about fasting that I want to bring up, not because I'm telling people to do it or like encourage everyone to try it, just so that people can appreciate like it's more important, like you said, to support the system than it is to take in these ingredients to like enhance my detoxification. So like there's an effect of fasting. I think this particular study, they fasted people for 36 hours, which is really long. Again, like don't just go ahead and do that. Like it's not right for everyone, especially if you're chronically stressed, under eating, and so on and so forth. But that 36-hour fast, they found it was like a 20% increase in the enzyme responsible for phase 1 detoxification. So it was cytochrome P450, which is, if you have higher amounts of this enzyme, then hypothetically you'd be able to detox faster. So this particular study, they found that 36-hour fast, those people were able to detoxify. They used caffeine in this example, which goes through the phase 1. They found that they were able to increase the detoxification of that caffeine by like 20% higher. So that's just an example, like people were just supporting the natural system, upregulating some pathways, and then that could maybe increase quote unquote detoxification.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, as we take food and water liquids in during the day, that's what our liver starts working on. Right. And so whenever we can give our bodies a bit of a breathing space between that stuff, now your liver can deal with everything else in your system. Right. And so there's a place for like, again, it can be a stress on the system as well. So you have to figure out if it's the right thing for you, but there's definitely a place to like restrict an eating window, or have a day where you don't eat a ton because you're just like, whatever. Yeah. Coming off of a weekend of pizza. I don't know.
Yeah. That would be a time where your liver's
not that
overworked.
You should go through that cycle. Like that's not a regular healthy cycle to do.
That's
the pizza and fast.
For 36
that's
hours.
also not what I tell people to do.
But like an appropriately placed fast could help break through that liver stagnation that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. If it works for you.
Yeah, if it's the right
with the guidance from somebody who understands the concepts fully.
All the disclaimers right now.
Context doesn't matter though. Yeah, that's like our number one goal, is to not make any blanket statements. I know you're on the same page with that. So in terms of like finding out information about what's going on in somebody's body, like lab work is something that a lot of people look for. Pros, cons, yeses, nos. like
Yeah. So, lab work has a place in hormonal testing. The place I think personally is kind of on the smaller side, because, especially for women, I guess I'll speak to women in here, because our hormones shift and change every day, and because no two women are quite the same. When you go to do lab work on a woman, the day that they always test on is cycle day 3. So great, you're testing me when my hormones are at their lowest and they're not, super active yet. Like that can give us some information, some baseline about what's happening in the system, but that really tells us nothing about the rest of the menstrual cycle, right? And the reference ranges for hormones are just like gigantic.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
And again, because it's a communication pathway, to me, it's more important around, okay, if your estrogen's at this level, does your progesterone come up to match it? Like, so it's not so much, oh, good, your estrogen's at a healthy level. It's how does that communicate with the rest of your system and how's your system communicating with it? That's way more important than what the actual number is.
Where's the day 3 standard come from?
So that happens in fertility testing.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so most medical doctors, most general practitioners, if a woman goes to them with a hormone issue, they're referring to a gynecologist, or like typically women go for, or they're being told to go on the pill, or they're being referred to a fertility doctor.
Okay.
I have yet to see recently a general practitioner order hormone blood work. They usually give it to somebody else, and that somebody else does the hormone blood work. So it's usually fertility patients, and it's cycle day 3 they test. Yeah. So then we can get more information, but this is typically only available to people who are going through fertility treatment, which is not, the general person on the street who wants to learn more about her cycle. They will go through a process of doing blood work and ultrasound on a daily basis leading up into their ovulation. So when we're doing blood work and ultrasound that frequently, we can get a ton of information from lab work, but that's not available to sort of the average person. And I can order blood work, but it doesn't get covered by OHIP through me. So for me to do a full cycle of testing for a woman, it gets really expensive. So the cost in that sense is not usually worth the lab work. So in blood testing.
Blood testing, yeah.
Yeah.
There's other ones.
Yeah. So we also have salivary hormone testing, and we have a dried urine testing. So those can be a little bit more useful. The cost of them goes up quite a bit. And they just give us a little bit better of a picture of communication, a little bit narrower of reference ranges. And then the dried urine testing gives us a lot of metabolites. So we can see like some of the pathways that are happening in the body. We can see how those are going because we can see the metabolites coming out through the urine. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have a lot to add to that. Just that I was going to ask you about the Dutch test.
Yeah.
Because I've looked it up and it's super cool.
It's really cool.
Especially in like for someone who maybe wants to look into like this detoxification thing. I mean, to me, that's like a non-negotiable first step to actually show you like what you're starting.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the Dutch testing is really cool. It's really, when you get the results back from it, it's a little bit complicated and it takes like a lot of time to kind of really go through it and figure out what's going on. Honestly, the biggest piece of that is like the cost of it. So when I have a woman in front of me who she tells me all these things are happening with her cycle, and we start doing some cycle tracking, I can get so much information from that paying for like the dried urine testing is not necessarily worthwhile. So I've definitely done it with some patients, but the benefit of it again is kind of dependent on what the goals are. And then I would say more men in my practice are way more interested in getting the testing done and then retesting. They want to see the numbers and see where it changes, where the woman is more like, if you can make me feel better, like I'll do whatever you want me to do.
Interesting. What is the Dutch test? What is it?
Dried urine metabolites.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Just catching up. Catching up to the conversation here.
I was looking at it before I did that xenoestrogen talk lately, because I think you mentioned this earlier, there's like 3 different pathways that the estrogen can go down when it's metabolized. One of those being, so you said estrogen growth proliferation. One of those can promote increased risk for cancer, essentially.
Yes.
That's the 4-OH, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the 16-OH, which I don't really fully understand. And then there's the 2-OH, which is, I believe, where you want it to go down for actual methylation, which is ultimate, quote unquote detoxification.
Yeah.
But it's wicked cool. Like it literally shows you like, it's like a speedometer.
It is. It's like a speedometer,
Yeah.
the test that comes back, and it's like,
yeah, like showing your levels of each metabolite. So you
Yeah.
like literally which pathway are my metabolites going down
Yeah.
on the speedometer.
Yeah.
It's cool.
And it's cool too because it has some neurotransmitters in it,
Oh,
and so
cool.
you can get a really full picture of what's going on. It is a really cool
Sign
test.
me up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think it's like, I looked it up the one time. Is it like, well, I guess it's different for us if we were to order it like online, but I think it's like $200.
Yeah, so there's
Terrible.
a few different tests. The one that I would be doing with women would be closer to $500. So gets up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How much time we have?
We're running low.
Under 5 minutes. Jeez.
We got the
flew
warning
by.
out. Yeah, it always does. Yeah. Do you get anywhere in your list of scribbles there?
Oh yeah.
You got some rapid fire questions?
Oh,
No rapid fire, but I don't know. I'm just trying to look over and see what we didn't touch on.
Yeah, covered a lot there.
I'll think of stuff afterwards. But I guess,
Yeah.
I don't know. One thing I was wondering about was women training like during or after menopause. Like how would that change? Because aren't all hormones then suppressed?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things about women in menopause. That's a whole thing.
Yeah, maybe it's a rabbit hole.
Yeah. But a couple of things that are important, I think, for women in perimenopause to menopause is to remember that the function of the ovaries shuts down over a period of time. Your body doesn't stop producing these hormones, though. So they're definitely not at the high levels that they would be in women who are cycling, but they are still being produced. And it's the adrenal glands that become our backbone for this. So it is incredibly important
Interesting.
that the health of the adrenal glands is there when a woman is in that perimenopausal range. And that will make the transition through menopause way better, a lot more easy, I guess you would say. So that being said, the transition period can be really difficult because you'll get spikes of hormones and you'll get bottoms out and you'll like kind of, it is a little bit more of a roller coastery thing that's hard to sort of figure out where they're at. But when they get into postmenopausal, their systems become very stable. And so when you can kind of figure out where you are postmenopausally, like, and know how to take care of yourself in there, what kind of training feels good, like where your strength is at, you can be really consistent in sort of nutrition and training at that point in time. Yeah. And, we don't build muscle in the same way throughout our entire life.
Yeah.
But lean muscle mass, as you guys know, right, is like the biggest factor when it comes to aging. And so women especially need to, keep building their strength. Yeah.
I mean, personally, I think that's like one of the most underappreciated areas of aging right now is aging and wellness is just like preserving muscle long-term in old age.
Yeah. I forget where I read it or where it came through, but there was something where, it said the biggest factor to how somebody is going to age and like kind of their vitality, what their life looks like is how much lean muscle mass they have on their body.
I've even seen them break it down into like,
get it on there, Jesse.
Shut the podcast down. That's the gem. Mic drop.
I've even seen them break it down in terms of like leg strength and grip strength.
Yeah.
That was a big one.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Well, that's independence too. If you can't open a jar of peanut
Yeah.
butter by yourself, it's gonna be a problem, right?
Huge. Yeah.
I mean, we have Kathy. At
She's
the gym.
awesome, man.
Doing Turkish get-ups, right? She's,
I don't know how old.
she is, but I mean, for her to be able to get up off the ground with a weight over her head, and like that's gonna allow her to have her independence for a long time. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, so important. Yeah,
that's the best example of it's not always cause and effect.
Yeah,
that's right there. So like the muscle isn't causing no death. Right? Like it's I have this muscle and I'm able to preserve my daily function and then I'm living happy, healthy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, We're to the wire. We'll get Lindsay's information in the notes of how you can get in contact with her. If you have more questions, you can reach out to us and we can direct you to her, or you can just follow the information that we'll put in the notes.
Yep.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
That was fun. Learned so many things. Oh God, 3.
The numbers are in red.
2, 1. See ya.